Hello, this is Arthur again, and today we have a 2012 Rolls-Royce Ghost with 83,000 miles. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please consider subscribing. I have a lot of videos on different interesting cars and interesting repairs, and if you don't mind watching them, it will really help me out grow my channel. As far as the car goes, this car has been here before a couple of times, and I've done a few repairs on it, and I have a couple of videos on this car already, and I will link them in the description box below. And as far as this time goes, this car developed a massive oil leak. Luckily the owner was able to turn it off, and it got towed over here, and we looked at it and we saw what the issue is, and the price on the parts that we found out through Rolls-Royce is just astronomical. I'm gonna show you the parts that needs to be replaced once I remove them, and I'll tell you how much they are. Alright, let's check it out. Okay, let's take a look at the bottom of this car where the oil leak is visible more. So you can tell it's coated in a lot of oil, although it was driven maybe for a minute or less once the oil leak started. It is coated in a lot of oil. I have wiped a lot of stuff down before to see where the oil leak is coming from. It was pretty difficult to see. I thought maybe it might have a turbo line or something like that, because most oil was coming from the passenger side. I was thinking it might be a oil return line or feed line or something like that. I have done upper oil pan on this car before, and that part is not leaking anymore, and that wouldn't cause a big leak unless there was a crack or something. And there was a crack, usually the engine probably wouldn't run at that point because a rod would have gone through or something like that. My first suspicion was this oil cooler lines. They go right there, and they go all the way in the front, both sides, I believe. They are metal to rubber lines, but we couldn't see where the oil is coming from. Did have to put oil in the engine, and then we did crank it for a couple of seconds, let some of the oil build up, and actually I was able to see the leak, and there was a massive oil spray that was coming from one of these oil cooler lines. I'm not sure if it's the feed or return, but one of them has a bursted line on it, and it's just pouring oil, is just shooting. Like in 2-3 seconds that it ran, basically it probably got like a quart or two oil shooting out of it. So it had to shut off immediately just to kind of see where the oil is coming from, because there was so much oil under the car I couldn't really see where it's from. As far as the removal of those lines go, I do have to drop the subframe, unfortunately, again, because there's zero access to it to get out. We have to disconnect the motor mounts and a lot of shields and so all around to drop the subframe. I have to support the engine. I'm hoping I won't have to completely drop the subframe, but partially it will give me enough room to fish the lines out, but I will see as I go. Okay. Okay, here are the lines. They are already out. One is input, one is output for the oil cooler lines, and one of them is leaking. I believe it's this one. It's difficult to tell exactly because there's this cover here and it is a big leak. So the owner himself reached out to Rolls-Royce dealership, tried to find the parts, and they are sold separately, and they are around $11,000 for two of them with tax to get it, in about 5 days to get it, and it is a pretty ridiculous price for the oil line. I understand it's a Rolls-Royce and everything is ridiculous on them, but that's an insane price. We were able to find the same lines online on the Scuderia website that sells high-end car parts, and they're not that much less. They're around $10,000, and that option is kind of last option. For now, we have found a company. The owner reached out to some shop he knew, and they were able to guide him into a direction to a company over here in Orange County in Costa Mesa that rebuilds these lines, and they're able to swap out the rubber pieces. And this one is being really not that high pressure of a line. It's an engine oil line. It might be 200 psi or so. I believe it's not really that dangerous to replace it if it's done properly, and at the cost I think it might be a good option. At least that's what the owner thinks, and we're gonna go with that option. I'm gonna take these lines in and I'll show you guys the repaired piece once I have it back. As far as the line removal goes, I think it went a little bit better than I thought it was gonna go. I did have to lower the subframe, not all the way out of the car, but lower it enough where I can actually get to the bolts that are holding the line. And the line only goes to the passenger side cooler. On the driver's side is a cooling radiator, probably for auxiliary pump or something for the turbos. And for the oil lines, it only goes to this radiator. It is supported over here on the subframe, and you do have to remove the subframe to be able to fish it out, and there are also a few other mounts on the engine and on the subframe to get it out, and then the bolts that hold it actually on the engine. 13 millimeter, you can see right there the holes on the upper oil pan. Wasn't too bad, honestly. Thought it was gonna be a lot worse, but still, it is. The downside is my lift is kind of locked up until the lines are back, because I can't move the car. So hopefully I can have it back sooner than later. Okay, so it is the next day. I took the hoses in this morning and I was able to get them redone. This place in Costa Mesa, it's called Mesa Hoses. They did a really good job. I mean, you can tell that they're worked on aftermarket. They did cut off the tubing and they welded in new fitments with threads, and then these are new hoses with compressed fittings, and they're high quality made in USA hoses that are actually serviceable. In case if they do leak, you can just unbolt them and get a new hose and replace it. It will be easier than removing the whole unit altogether. This way you might not even need to drop the subframe. Possibly you might need to for this two, but for this other two, meaning opposite this two, you might need to drop it for, but these two, the ones that go under a fender liner, you might not need to drop it. These are the old pieces. They were cut off, they were leaking. You see one of them has a big cut on it, and this is where the oil was leaking from. It's a big cut, about an inch long, and it was just shooting oil out of it. So to redo this was about $280, which was a lot less than $10,000–11,000. that was gonna cost. I am all about OEM parts where it is possible, but you know, if this was maybe $2,000, this hoses, I would say let's go get the OEM ones and not mess with cutting and putting new hoses on it. But at $10,000 difference, I think this is the way to go. I do have new O-rings for it from a dealer. I'm going to install on them and I'm going to start putting it back together. Alright, so the hoses have been replaced. There you go. Subframe is already back on. The hoses go right here and then all the way down only to the passenger side, nothing to the driver's side. But you do have to drop the subframe to be able to get them in and out. Even with new hoses, they have, you know, nuts on them. You can tighten them, fasteners. You can't really tighten them without subframe being down. There's no access really, unless you line them up somehow to feed them. But I don't think so, because it wraps around the subframe and you have to drop the front of the subframe at least. And to do that, you have to take everything off really. Anyway, so this fixed this issue. I had the car running for a while, warmed it up. It runs nice and smooth. It is not leaking. So I'm pretty happy the way it came out. The fitment, I would say, is 9 out of 10. It's not OEM, of course, but it does fit well. And for the cost, it does the job. You can see the lens right there. Would I recommend this? If you don't want to spend 11,000 on parts, I would say yes. The parts price is ridiculous. Would I do it on my own car? I think I probably would at this cost. If it was like $1,000, $2,000, I would just put new ones. But at 10, 11,000, I would definitely go this route. Alright. I hope you enjoyed this video. I sure did. You know, I learned something new with these cars. There's not that many of these cars around that come through someone like me, and I'm glad to work on them whenever I can. And I did definitely enjoy the process, and luckily we were able to take care of this problem in a reasonable cost, and the owner is going to be very happy driving his Rolls-Royce around. Thank you for watching. Please comment, like and subscribe. There are more videos to come.